Well, good night, folks. This is Shippy, the Explorer, um, coming to you at late hour of the night. It's just about 11 o'clock at night in Maryland, and I'm come to you with this bit of broadcast at this hour, the wee hours of the night, because I was for some reason I looked up the the War of 1812 that was fought between United States and Great Britain, and I came across a document in Google search that brought up a word that says it's pronounced impressment. I've never heard of that word impressment before, but as an explorer, I really have to really look at that, because it seems like impressment became one of the chief reasons why the 1812 war was fought. And why am I doing this? No, it has led me that um, I'm close to actually where the war started. And tomorrow, during the day, when it's bright and sunny, I hope I'll bring us to the spot. Today it's called Peace Cross. Well, let me just read a little bit about from this article. It's called The History Detectives. It's a social investigations, and it's featured the British Navy impressment. And bear with me. Since the French Revolution, conscription or the draft has been how countries have found additional manpower for their armed forces in modern times. Prior to this British practice, a cruel but effective way of combating the manpower shortage in their navy, impressment. So, in really, impressment or press gang, as it was more commonly known, was recruitment by force. It was a practice that directly affected the US and was even one of the causes of the War of 1812. The British Navy consistently suffered manpower shortages due to the low pay and the lack of qualified seamen. During wartime, the Navy forced unwilling individuals into service. Residents of seaports lived in fear of the press gangs that patrolled waterfronts and raided taverns, pouncing on deserters and idle mariners. Prints from the time show armed gangs kidnapping men in their beds, or barging into wedding and hauling the groom out, much to the distress of the bride. Poor bride. But generally, pressing took place at sea, where the armed gangs would board merchant ships. These ships were ransacked of their men and often left without sufficient hands to take them safely into port. Now, impressment was first made lawful during Elizabethan times. Elizabethan times is during Queen Elizabeth I. Those are the period. Though it had been a common practice of drafting soldiers dating back to the 13th century. In 1563, Queen Elizabeth passed an act touching politics considerations for the maintenance of a navy, which defined more clearly the liability of sailors who may be forced to serve as mariners. The legislation was taken further in 1597 when the Vagrancy Act was passed, which now allowed for men of disrepute to be impressed for service into the fleet. So now, while essential for the strength of the British Navy, the brutal nature of impressment was deeply unpopular. Many viewed it as an inhumane and unconstitutional system. In the 18th century, a raft of legislation was introduced aimed at modernizing the practice. In 1740, Act declared that all men under 18 and over 55 and foreigners who served on British ships were declared exempt from enforced services. In reality, the article says, however, these laws were ignored and impressment of foreigners was commonplace. In fact, only 40 years later, the exemptions from impressment were withdrawn. So desperate was the British Navy for seamen. American merchant vessels were a common target. Between 1793 and 1812, the British impressed more than 15,000 U.S. sailors to supplement their fleet during their Napoleonic wars with France. By 1812, the United States government had had enough. On 18th of June, the United States declared war on Great Britain, citing in part impressment. After the Napoleonic Wars, impressment was ended in practice, though not officially abandoned as a policy. The last law was passed in 1835, in which the power to impress was reaffirmed. Now, it is limited to the length of service of a pressman to 5 years, and added the provision that a man couldn't be pressed twice. Now, this has led me to the thinking that I need to go explore. I need to go explore this because I'm just living I would say 2 miles from a place called Peace Cross. It's where the Anacostia River cuts through this village, and where the river was low enough or shallow enough that the British came up the Chesapeake Bay, and they did not cross at the deeper level further down the river, but they came up into Maryland and crossed at this crossing where the Anacostia River, it was low enough to cross. And at that bridge that will take it tomorrow, the first shots of the war took place, and the local militia on the western side of the bridge, they started to shoot at the British soldiers as they traveled west towards Washington, and they shot at the British soldiers and tried to keep them back, but they were not effective, as in this case that they stopped the British soldiers. The British soldiers were able to eventually march down into Washington and, I understand, burn the White House. So tomorrow we will explore together. Certainly would like you to come with me and we explore together. I'll show you hopefully the exact spot. It will be modern, so we have to use a bit of imagination But it's called Peace Cross now because there's a cross, a large cross in the semicircle area where it's I think it's in honor of the soldiers who fought in World War One. And of course, you know that cross is the Christian symbol, and that cross even has caused some controversy because some people, some citizens thought or argued that the cross shouldn't be on federal or public land. So, but that doesn't have much to do with the. It's just happened that the place has this cross, but then the area is also historical, and I'll bring you that tomorrow if life's spare. Okay, so this is Shippy the Explorer. If you like a bit of history, I think you'll enjoy this tomorrow because we all go on the tour and enjoy this, or try to learn a little more about this. So, see you soon, my friends. Okay. And thanks for watching. Keep on watching, because in my sense, I think in my state of doing these programs, I hope to educate you as best as possible. Bye for now. Good morning, folks. This is Shippy the Explorer coming back to you. As I promised, I'll take you on a trip today to explore the War of 1812, and it all revolves around the word impressment. That is new to me, and I know some about the history, but that word is very new. I'm taking it to show you that the weather is, the sun is out, the weather is bright, and it's a lovely day. Now we are going to a place called Peace Cross, and the area is called Peace Cross because, as you see from the wording, if you can see it, Peace Cross is a World War I memorial located in Blazenburg, Maryland, standing just 40 feet in height. The large cross is made in tan concrete. So this Peace Cross, the area is called Blazenburg, and nickname is Peace Cross because of that cross. But incidentally, that's also the area where the War of 1812 started. And since I am just maybe less than 5 miles away from the place, I say, why not explore? Why not show you the area that I live? It's a very historical area. And you'll see how close it is. As you can see, we have lots of park space, lots of woods around us. and in between the woods you have a number of streams running. Traffic seems to be a little backed up today. I think it's the construction of the Purple Line. But on both left and right of me, it's that's Greenbelt. I think that's part of the Greenbelt Park, and this is part of the College Park woods. But back to history. I have a nephew who recently I sat down. He's 11 years old, Dude Morrison. Well, I shouldn't have called his full name, but I was impressed of how much history he knows. And one of these days I'm gonna have a video of him where both of us sit down and see if we can challenge each other. But he gave me there's a recent conversation with him. He talked about, he gave me the impression that Napoleon had a great effect on United States because of the Napoleonic War. The middle part of the Louisiana Valley and was taken over or bought out in exchange for something else, the Americas, between America and France. So, but the War of 1812, as far as I remember or I know, I thought was an extension where the British government, or British Crown, was trying to take back the United States at that moment. But I came across, as I said before, I came across that word, the imprisonment, where the press gang were going around, mainly around the ports of the United States, and just capturing people, capturing men over 18 years of old and under 55, and just basically incorporating them into a gang of maybe low wages or free wages onto British ships. And after thousands of these gentlemen or male were taken over, United States government got fed up of the whole situation and decided to repress or revolt against that whole idea. And so the War of 1812 started. So we're probably just 2 miles from the spot, and this is the intersection of what they call Baltimore Avenue and East-West Highway. And 100 years ago, you would certainly not see so many cars. You would probably be seeing a few horse-drawn carts and a few of the Formula or the Ford cars that were just introduced into the society for those who can afford it. But you would have seen so much activity in the area. So the whole area is really an historical area, and we're just basically 15 minutes from Washington, D.C. Yes, as I said before, I thought the War of 1812 was about Great Britain's effort to retake United States, and but that word impressment came up, and I'm amazed that the opinion or the facts is that that's also one of the reasons why the war was fought. As you can see, some of these buildings probably they're old and small and dingy, and I won't be surprised if especially the one I just showed is wasn't here for quite a while. We're going now south on Route 1, and this area, the last 10 years or more, I think it's 15 to 20 years, 10 to 15 years, have developed, where we have these they are private homes, and on top you can live, and then on the bottom it was designed that the bottom part of the building they are basically shops. So quite a number of them are restaurants and small markets, and you can see the area is still being developed. Some of the old buildings I think still exist. In this area, the city of Hyattsville, and another time we'll talk about the Underground Railway. Part of the Underground Railroad started in this region. So city of Hyattsville up here, and we are actually going over, believe it or not, one railway right here. That's one railway we just went over, and then that railway joins another railway right here. So two railways we are crossing, actually have crossed two railways in 2 minutes. Now we are still on the Route 1 corridor. And incidentally, Route 1 was the original route that runs from south, deep south, way down in Florida, straight up into New York to the north, and mainly on the eastern part of United States. And this is where the horse and buggy and all that used to come across. Now we are going over the Anacostia River. And here you go, folks. So this river that runs just 2 miles or coming from way up in the valley. We are crossing it at Blazenberg. So now, if you can see the sign, it says Blazenberg Waterfront Park. I think I'll try to get a park. There you are, folks. Peace Cross. Try to get a park somewhere here. Apparently, I can't turn left. So I think I missed my chance of parking there. Let's make our way around. See if we can get into this park. If they don't. So here we go, folks. We're here. So although its here is called Peace Cross, this is Peace Cross Memorial Park, but it's in the town of Blazenberg. And the Star Spangled Banner National Historical Trail. And this house over here, this house survives from the days when Blazenberg was a busy port where George Washington stopped as he traveled the whole post road. On August 24th, 1814, the British established an artillery position nearby and fired cannon and rockets on the American defenders. Local tradition claims that the walls of the house were scarred by the cannonballs, but no evidence exists. So this is the house they're talking about. So this house is it's quite famous, and it's called the George Washington House. There we go. And I'm surprised they keep the place so shabby. Maybe it's a George Washington house, built circa, and that means near 1752. George Washington House, often referred to as the Indian Queen Tavern, was built by tavern keeper Jacob Worth prior to the Revolution, when Blazenburg was a thriving port. So from 1774 to 1783, it was run by an innkeeper turned lawyer and balloonist Peter Cars. In 1792, this building was sold to further the legal education of William Worth. In 1894, populist reformer Jacob Coxey and his army of unemployed protesters camped here. So this house is very famous, the George Washington House. So we're going back over to the park where we can start our exploration. And remember, we are exploring. This is Shippy the Explorer coming to you from a beautiful day in Blazenburg, Maryland. So here is it, the Blazenburg Monument. And you will see it says the Star Spangled Banner National Historic Trail. This crossroads has become a place of communities to commemorate the residents in service and in death. The large memorial cross in the center of the crossroads, constructed between 1919 and 1925, is dedicated to the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who died in World War I. So we're in here's another plaque. It says, in the summer of 1814, the landscape of the Blazenburg was very different than it's today. And this is a picture of it. Once outside the village of Blazenburg in modern Cottage City and Colmore Manor, buildings gave way to open countryside. This is what it looks like in the old days, compared to now. It's so warm today. Well, I dress pretty warm. So I can take off my cap. Not a lot of improvement in terms of modern structure has taken place in this region. Folks, Maybe, and maybe that's good, because the here is still serving as an historical zone. And here we are. Now this side of the Battle of the Blazenberg, 1814, August 24th. Undaunted War of 1812. This monument stands as a tribute to the American soldiers, sailors, and Marines who fought and died here defending their nation's capital. The monument depicts Commodore Joshua Barney of the U.S. Navy, a monument after being wounded by the approaching British troops. Barney is assisted by Charles Ball, former slave and flotillayman of the U.S. Navy, and by a U.S. Marine, part of the force of nearly 500 troops who refused to retreat until ordered to by their commander, and stood undaunted in the battle in defense of Washington, D.C. So you can see and up top it says, in August 1814, approximately 4,500 British troops under the command of Major General Robert Ross landed in southern Maryland and marched to the upper Marlborough. The British convened a council of war and marched towards Washington intent on attacking the capital. They arrived in Blazenberg on August 24, 1814. The American forces, numbering nearly 6,000 and composed largely of militia units, together with the U.S. Army, Navy, and regulars, occupied the ground across the river from Blazenberg. The British troops who arrived at noon crossed the bridge and engaged the American forces on the far bank. The British, I'll read it for you. The British fired Congreve rockets, whose sounds and red glare distracted and confused the Americans. The screeching rockets were new but relatively harmless weapons that left billowing smoke trails and caused panic in the ranks of U.S. troops. American riflemen and artillery inflicted significant casualties as the British soldiers crossed the bridge. A separate British contingent forged the river to the north and outflanked the militia artillery regiment from Baltimore. U.S. Army General William Winder, commander of the American forces, ordered the troops to fall back, which led to the confusion and a full-fledged retreat of the untrained militia. Although the battle was lost and nearly over, an epic moment is still remembered with pride. Commodore Barney's final stand, armed with muskets, boarding pikes, and cutlasses, which supported from heavy cannon. Barney's men engaged the British troops with vigor and made several counter attacks. Barney's courageous and undaunted efforts delayed the British and provided valuable time for the evacuation of the nation's capital. So you can see on the day of August 24th, 1814. This is a map of Blazenburg. And you can see the river as it flows south. Today, if you look over, that's the same intersection. And you can see, folks, I really don't see a word that says, that talks about the reason why the war started there. Don't see any word. I didn't see a word saying impressment. Imprisonment. So, what was the war about? And that's a big question I have, and I'll try to incorporate the word imprisonment. This monument is in honor of, this is called the Peace Cross. And if you believe it or not, folks, lovely monument that some members of the society thought this monument wasn't rightly to be here because it's on public land, and United States policy, or there's a establishment policy that says we don't mix religion and government. So they thought this land, this monument wasn't supposed to be here. So they lobbied to remove it. But the people who wanted the monument here, they have won. And the monument still stands. It was built in 1917. This memorial cross was built between 1917 and 1918. So I'll go further up. So Blazenburg, if you look over, those are some of the old buildings that still stands to today. Very historical area. What I'll do is show you some of the monuments that are now here established in the area. This one is, it seems like the area has become an area where we have established a number of monuments. This is the Veterans Memorial in honor of Korea War 1950 to 1953, and the Vietnam War July 1959 to May 1975. This is another honor. Now show you beautiful place, quite beautiful. And then this place is here And I'm not sure if a lot of folks really come down to explore this area. It's wooded, it's cool, it just needs a bit of cleaning up, and I would wish that the authorities would do it. Here is another honor roll in memory of the men and women of the Prince George's County who made this supreme sacrifice that freedom might live. Prince George's County. So now we are basically in Prince George's County. So Maryland is one of the states. Let me explain. United States first started, well, not United States, but this country, when the pioneers came, they formed the first 13 colonies. They were independent colonies run by their leaders. I'm not sure if it was a governor or what. But after they realized that they were being heavily taxed by the British government, they were still somewhat under the crown of England. They started protests that there's too much tax. So they declared 1776, they went against the British, the king, and they fought on the War of Independence, and they won. So eventually they formed what they call the United States of America. Isn't this lovely? So I think I won't go too far over there. I just want to show you the monuments, the Blazenberg Water Park. So I'll just do the whole trip today, show you. I'll come back and do the park itself. That's will be another thing. So, but let's do the War of 1812 first. So you have now United States formed. You have the first 13 colonies turned to states, and then you have progressively they had more. I think Maryland was part of the first 13. I'm not sure of my history there. But anyway, Maryland is, as one of the states, is divided up into counties. You have Montgomery County, Prince William County, Charles County, and so forth. And obviously, Prince George's County. So we are in Prince George's County. And as the word depicts, Prince George, it must have been a Prince George of England. So we are basing the names on the British royalty. Because basically, believe it or not, folks, United States is British to a certain extent. They have fought against them back then. They split off, but this is 2024, and you can't separate United States from Great Britain to a certain extent. They respect each other, and the countries technically you call United States maybe the child of Great Britain to a certain extent. So even now they do a joint effort into in wars and development, climate change, and all that. So they have a number of efforts. So here we are, folks. I'll talk about the Blazenberg waterfront. Believe it or not, this is some 15 minutes from Washington, way up into the hinterland, and barges used to come up as far as this area. But let me see if I can climb up this mountain, folks, and show you. I'll go into maybe the highest point where we can explain what happened. And this is the Anacostia River. All right. So this is the story, folks. This bridge was built 1955. So Blazenberg, let's overlook the city of Blazenberg and look at the water. All right, so let's talk about the War of 1812. As you can see, the British came in from the west, from the east, and they chose this part because they realized that if they came further south down the river, it would be too deep, and to act as a surprise to the American government or the American soldiers, they came way up into Blazenberg where they could cross at this spot where the water is basically shallow. If you look good, you can even see the sand, and they could march across this river. And as they went west and then south down into Washington in that way, they would have the element of surprise on the on the American soldiers. But believe it or not, as they came up into this area, I think they had camped. Word got out that the British were here. The British were here, and they start to lament. And as the British started to come across, there must have been some kind of a small bridge here or something in the old days. The militia, the first shots were fired just around this area. So you imagine the Americans on this side and then the British coming up along this side and firing their cannons, right? And the little scrimmage happened here. Now the militia could not, as you see from the writings on the monument, the militia, the American militia, could not hold back the British. So eventually the British overpowered them and they march down into Washington. Left, right, left, right, left, cannons and guns and all that. And eventually they reached the White House and attacked it. And I understand from the little history I know that they burnt the White House. But that did not cause the American government to lose hope or even lose the war eventually, because from what I understand, the government of America still stayed intact, and until today. So what the British, after they burnt the White House, they came back up. I think they, if I'm not mistaken, they came back up, went back, whatever remained of them, went into the ship, back into the Chesapeake area, marched back over, and they went up into Baltimore, and they attacked Baltimore. The fort there, Fort Henry. I think it's Fort Henry. And they bombed and they blasted that place all night. So the man who experienced, one of the men who experienced that, got up the morning and he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. It was written by, can't remember his name right now, I'll have to look it up, in Baltimore, in praise of that here we are, after being bombed and shot at all night, we have survived the British attack. So that's it. But go back to our words, folks. The word that I started out with, that I promise you, the word in impressment. And I'm amazed that the word impressment talks about that, give the impression that the war was started from that. But I can imagine that's one of the reasons. Because here you are, Britain, Great Britain and United States in 1814. Remember 1776 to 1814 wasn't far off. So the British were still, they still didn't like United States at this point, because here you are, you have a massive landmass, and these, I would call them rebels, just come to this place and declare independency. So they still didn't like them. So I guess the British Navy was descending on all the ports around the place and just capturing these guys and basically imprisoning them on the ships where they would work for little or nothing. So impressment is the act of just capturing young men. You come to a wedding and you just impound or capture the look at her. Capture the groom, and here is the bride is fighting and crying, and you're gone with this woman's white husband, just captured. You're taking them all to the British ships and having them work as sailors or just ordinary hand laborers on these ships, and you never stop. I think personally this was an act of antagonistic act of just aggravating the Americans. But eventually, as you can see, the Americans couldn't take it anymore, and they declared war. So word imprisonment is, there's a suggestion that's one of the main reasons for the 1812 war. But with all that effort by the British, they still didn't take over, recapture, as I would say, the United States at that point. So this is Blazenberg, folks. I'm gonna go further up and take a shot of the river. There we go. Today we have a lovely bridge over this river. But in 1812, on that dreadful day, war was started and being fought at this very section of the country. War, folks. Today we have peace and relative peace and freedom. American citizens, friends and things, we are zipping back and forth around this bridge. We are free to a certain extent. Free. But that was partly due to the brave effort of people who fought. Look at it. So this soldier depicts the militia trained with his rifle towards the east, as you can imagine the British soldiers coming towards them, and they fought back at this spot. And it's surprising, just across the bridge, this part is called Calmore Manor, a little town that can. So I think I was explaining the fact that the United States is divided up into states, and then the states are divided up into counties, and then the counties are divided up. That's where I stopped. The counties are divided up into little towns and little jurisdictions. So you right over, you have Blazenberg, you have Calmore Manor. This is PG, folks, Prince George's County. So I'm gonna give you a perspective now that I have it. Now over on the east, you have, if you look good, oops, you have the British soldier with his big cannon, and on the west side you have the American militia. So right in the middle they clashed, right at this moment, right at this spot. And today it's calm with the seabirds, the water birds, just enjoying
The sea, enjoying the tranquility. And I am too enjoying it. It's a lovely day. It's amazing. I tell you folks that spring is on the way. Now look what they have done. So much development that we have regular roads and we have bike roads. Now this is not a road, ordinary road, folk. This is mainly for bikes, and this is part of the trail that you can run from Maryland for dozens of miles straight down into Washington, D.C. Look at the birds. And believe it or not, this river has fish. 20-30 years ago, this river, they had allowed it to just deteriorate and full of trash. But there's effort now to keep it clean, and so let's look back on the spot where the War of 1812, caused by the crazy act of imprisonment of United States citizens. And this is the reason that we're introducing that word to you as part of a history. There's the old building, the George Washington building, far there. The British soldier statue is depicted on the right, and the American militia is on the left. And they face each other in this very spot. Blazenburg, 1812. British government is trying to antagonize the United States country by just taking their citizens and imprisoning them technically on these ships. So history taught us that I got the impression that Britain was trying to take back United States, but maybe the act of impressment really triggered off the war. So it was probably an underlying reason why the war started at that moment. And out of that war, United States became stronger. In that whole war, they found that they could fight back. Out of that war, the Star-Spangled Banner anthem was written, and America has never looked back. Now United States is 300 and something million people strong, super, and has its problems, but I hope our politicians would keep us in safe and in a safe mood, protect our citizens, be fair, continue to be fair, or try to go back to fairness, because I know some of it is not fair, what has been happening lately and even before. So this is Shippy the Explorer you know, bringing a bit of history in my own way to you. The War of 1812. What it was about. Was it the United States Britain's trying to take back the United States? Or the act of imprisonment? That's your new word, folks. If you like the video, hope you have been educated to a certain extent. If I made some mistakes, you can correct me. But I'm trying to bring you what I know.
Okay, we're gonna go over this bumpy bridge.
There you go. So, Shippy the Explorer saying bye for now. Hope you have enjoyed this bit of history. And on a tranquil day on the river banks of the Anacostia River in Prince George's County, I say, if you like it, like, subscribe, and share. Bye for now, folks.